We are back on the mock draft simulator here on PFF, and today we're going to be doing a 2-round mock draft. So, in this video, I'm kind of going to fly through the first round just because we've already talked a lot about the first round. I think everybody's getting a little bit of that fatigue. So we're going to explore some other options. No trading in this video, but we're going to be moving pretty quickly past the first round and then entering in the second round. Hopefully we'll be seeing new scenarios, obviously some new teams, like the Panthers have 2 second-round picks. I think they have 2, yeah. But essentially, I'm going to be flying through the first round, going to be giving the picks that I have generally give them, or more or less, I'm recording this on April 4th, more or less what I think is just kind of going to happen. Again, no trading up, but we're going to quickly run through this. Going to go with Caleb, Drake May, where is Jaden Daniels, and then Marvin, Malik Neighbors, and then Rome Odunze. I'm really good with that 3 wide receiver trio here. And then obviously Joe Alt. I'm going to go with my best edge rusher in the class, Leao Tula 2. Going to go with my favorite interior defensive lineman in this class, Byron Murphy, then Brock Bowers. And then obviously I don't think that JJ McCarthy should be a first round pick. I'm not very high on him, at least yet. I think he could be good at the NFL level, but not right now where it stands. If you guys want to watch my film and real in-depth opinion on him, go watch my prospect breakdown. I posted that a few days ago. And then for the... Also, I don't think I'm going to be picking these guys, Bo Nix or Penix, in the first round right now. I don't see them as first-round players, and I don't think the NFL... They're probably going to be late first-round guys, but more or less I'm going to be taking some other needs. Like for the Broncos, I'll go with Dallas Turner. For the Raiders, I'm going to go with Terrion Arnold. I'll go with Talisa Fuaga for the Saints. I'll go with Quinyon Mitchell for the Colts. And I'll go with Verse for the Seahawks. For the Jaguars, I'll go with Kool-Aid McKinstry. I'll go with Amarius Mims for the Bengals. For the Rams, I'm going to go with the Aaron Donald replacement, I guess. That would be Jazon Newton. The Steelers really need wide receiver. Traded away Deontay Johnson. Going to go with the Donnie Mitchell. I think that's a great pick. Going to go with Jack Surprise-Johnson for the Seahawks. Or not the Seahawks, the Dolphins for the Eagles. I'm going to go ahead and give them cornerback. I think that Nate Wiggins fits much better on the outside than Cooper DeJean does. And then for the Vikings' second pick in this draft, I think I'm going to go with wide receiver. Maybe not. Maybe I don't need to go with wide receiver for them. Let's go with... I think that I'm going to go with cornerback. I'm going to go with the Swiss Army knife. I'll go with Cooper DeJean here. For the Cowboys, I'm going to go with Olu Fashanu. Going to go with Troy Fatanu next. For the Green Bay Packers, the Buccaneers, I'm going to go with I'm going to go with edge rusher help. I'm going to go with Chop Robinson. For the Arizona Cardinals, they picked Marvin in my first scenario. Now I'm going to pick defensive back for them. Actually, no. Let's pick defensive... Maybe not. What can I go with? What is the board looking like right now for the Cardinals? I think it's more or less looking like... I think cornerback. Let's go with Kamari Lassiter. I think Kamari Lassiter is very underrated. I don't think a lot of people are talking about him going in the first round. Stephon Diggs got traded away. You're picking an explosive guy in Brian Thomas Jr. For the Lions, I think that their biggest need right now is obviously secondary again, but this is going to be kind of a tough area to pick for cornerback here. I don't know. I think that the Lions are a big trade down spot in this draft. What can I take for them? I would really be reaching into the second round with this pick, so I am going to go with... Yeah, I'll go with cornerback. I'm going to go with... they kind of have to. I'm going to go with a boundary guy with Ennis Rackenstraw Jr. For the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to go with right tackle here with J.C. Latham. They traded away Morgan Moses. That fits the need there. And then Tyler Guyton is going to go to the Niners. I think that is the Niners' biggest need is probably right tackle, or really the right side of the line. And then for the Chiefs, let's go with... How about let's go with Lad McConkey? I think that'd be a fun pick for the Chiefs. So now we've made it into the second round. And this is where I'll be slowing down. Obviously, that was a 5-minute-ish looking at my OBS. So let's spend the next 30 minutes talking more about some second round guys, some guys that I haven't talked about as much. So for the Panthers, we see a lot of their moves in the offseason were addressing the offensive line. And now I'm going to address, now let's address some other offensive needs. So what are we looking like? What is the board looking like right now? Well, it's looking like wide receiver took a little bit of a dip. You know, we've taken some other players ahead of guys like Franklin, Leggett. You have Purcell. So I think with the Panthers, honestly, I'm going to double dip. I'm going to end up double dipping, really. Starting off with Troy Franklin. We've talked about him a bunch on the mock draft, so I won't go too far into him. But then for the Patriots, you choose quarterback with your first pick in the draft. Now let's go with... I picked Jaden Daniels. Okay, so let's go with wide receiver again. You know, wide receiver in the second round. I think it's going to be a plentiful wide receiver group in the second round. Ricky Pearsall, great hands, good size as well. I don't know if he came in it. Yeah, good size, plays with, plays very fluid. He got good route running, very low drop rate as well. And I'm pretty solid with that. Cardinals already picked wide receiver. And I picked Kamari Lassiter for their other pick. So let's go with defensive line. I could look at edge rusher as well. Let's go with, what do they play? They play a 4-3. So I think a 4-3 defensive end would fit best. I'm going to go with Chris Braswell. Braswell, kind of like a budget Dallas Turner a bit. Not as explosive as him, but has some good pass rush moves. Some good strength as well, converting speed to power. Good bend as well. I'm solid with that for the Cardinals. And then for the Commanders, you address center, so I don't think I'm taking Zach Frazier. I would like to go with other interior offensive linemen. I think I'm going to go with Graham Barton here. Flexible, can play guard, can play center, can play tackle. So I'm pretty solid with that for the Commanders. You kind of want to keep on building that offensive line, especially for Drake May. And a guy like Graham Barton is a plug and play guy, as well as being a pretty solid pass blocker. And also, I don't know why there aren't the pressure numbers here, but essentially 11 pressures last year and like 400 snaps. For the Chargers, I picked wide receiver first round with Malik Nabers. So now I would... For them, I think their biggest need really is... I think I'm going to go with cornerback. I'm going to go with Mike Sanford still. This is going to be very early for him. I'm probably going to end up having a third round grade on Sanford still. But this guy is massive production through the air. He had 6, I don't know why they're not showing it here. Oh, right here. 6 interceptions. I know the 4 touchdowns allowed, but get 6 interceptions, 71 passer rating allowed. Great in coverage. Very, very much his own guy. But again, he fits the system because it is going to be the same system as the Michigan defense. You bring in a familiar face, and also they do have Asante Samuel, but I think it's slot, but I think they could just move him to the boundary or do something with Sanford still. Again, it's more or less picking it on the Michigan and Harbaugh connection here. For the Titans, I went ahead and picked Joe Alt in the first round. Now we're going to go with wide receiver again, and I'm going to go with more of a separator type in Jermaine Burton, a guy who's really good at what was I going to say? His yards per catch was massive. I think it was, 20.5 yards per catch. I know the yards per catch or the yards after catch, the YAC numbers aren't the best, but again, the drop rate is 0, 2.75 yards per route run. Good at a contested catch for a smaller-ish guy or more of a thinner-framed guy, as well as, average depth of target was 4th. He had the 4th highest average depth of target, and this dude just gets huge amount of chunk plays. Is good on not breaking routes, but like fluid or routes, like crossing routes and fade routes. He's really good on those. And then for the Panthers, again, I am going to definitely double dip with wide receiver here. I mean, there's so much of a need at that position that they can justify double dipping so easily. Xavier Leggett, South Carolina guy, get to keep him in Carolina. His catch radius, even if his arms aren't like the longest, strong arms, but this dude comes down with like every catch and every like area. Top, he can come down with it at his face. He can come down with catches at the belt. Strong player as well, and is also like he can hit a second gear, he can hit a third gear and just go. Again, 3.15 yards per route run. The contested catch rate was low, but that's because he had so many contested targets. But low drop rate is good as well. And then for the Commanders, again, man, I didn't know they had I didn't know the 2 second-round picks. But we picked Grant Barton. We, of course, picked Drake May. So I think this is time to now do the defense. And I'm really looking towards edge rusher here because you lose out big time. You traded away Chase Young and Sweat. You traded away those two, so I'm thinking that you need edge rusher help regardless. I'm more or less thinking of Darius Robinson here. I think he's the next on my board. So for Darius Robinson, what he has is a really good bull rush, and he's got good, like, strong hands. Like he can really pack a punch, especially with his bull rush. He's 285 pounds, 6'5", and he plays like the 5 tech, which is the edge rusher position. But I mainly think he can fit into like a 4-eye situation or like this is the tackle, like this will be him. But for Washington necessarily, it just comes out of need. Like they need edge rushers. And then for the I think I'm going to take Tyler Nubin here for the Green Bay Packers. Tyler Nubin, great feel for coverage. Just overall, that could be mainly in zone, but 39.6 passer rating allowed is phenomenal. Again, 20% forced completion rate, low missed tackle rate for a safety, which is good. Also, Tyler Nubin was an All-American, and it also fits a big need for the Packers, you don't have. Well, I mean, they just signed. Who did they sign? Massive deal. Xavier something, I forgot. Giants 4 years, $68 million. Solve up the other safety position with Tyler Nubin. I'm good with that. And then for the Texans, this is their trade down spot when they went from 23 to now here. Wide receiver is all solved up. You traded for Stephon Diggs. I'm more or less leaning towards linebacker here. Going to go with Peyton Wilson. This is a guy who could just flat out fly around the field. You have Blake Cashman as your run defender. Now you have Peyton Wilson as your coverage guy because Wilson had a 47.2 passer rating allowed, which is a phenomenal number. Again, 90 coverage grade. This dude ran a 4.43 at the combine, and that really made up for, or that really connected with the tape because he kind of just flies around and makes tackles everywhere on the field and catches up to pretty much any position. For the Atlanta Falcons, I picked Laiatu Latu. So now I'm going to go with their next biggest need, which is I think a true, like a more of a separator type at wide receiver because they really have Drake London and they got these jump ball guys, but I'm more or less worried about quick separation, and I think that Roman Wilson really fits that. He's got really good cutting ability and short area quickness, as well as he's good after the catch. He does not drop the ball often, 2% drop rate. It's just more or less he's a smaller guy. He's around, I think he came into the combine like 5'10", 180 pounds, just a regular, like, smaller slot guy. And again, only 1 drop and good after the catch as well. And then for the Raiders, I picked Terrion Arnold for their first pick, and now I'm going to end up going with quarterback. Let's go with Bo Nix here to start off the quarterback. I would more or less say that Bo Nix is probably going to be picked higher than Michael Penix. It depends, because Penix had a really good pro day, but the thing about Bo Nix is the accuracy is something that, like, you don't just fall on 77% completion percentage, and also he's got a good command of the field. It's more or less the pocket was clean for him on a down-to-down basis. He wasn't challenged too much at Oregon, but solid. He's a bit older. He will be 24 by the regular season. And then for the Raiders, you have, I don't know, maybe they wouldn't want to waste a pick like that on Bo Nix. But again, you have Gardner Minshew for a 2-year deal, but it could be a 1 year with an opt-out. And then for the Saints, I drafted Talisa Fuaga for my first pick. Now I'm going to go with, they could address wide receiver, not really. There's so much dead cap, and they do have 2 wide receivers with Shaheed and Chris Olave. It's more or less the line was tough last year, and I also think that their defensive line, I kind of want to draft. I'm going to draft Sweat I'm going to go with a different kind of method here. So I think that their run defense was a bit wary. I know they still have Cam Jordan on the outside, and they drafted Brian Bresee in the first round last year. Now I'm going to go with a true thumper, which is T'Vondre Sweat, phenomenal run defender, a 12.8 run stop rate, 92 run defense grade. And he just kind of forklifts guys. He can play a 2-gap responsibility, and also moves pretty well for a 366-pound guy like T'Vondre Sweat there. And then for the Colts, again, I am going to continue to go with receiver. I would more or less want, I wouldn't go with Worthy because they already have Downs. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking for like a sneaky guy here. I'm going to go with Javon Baker. I know that a lot of people are really high on Javon Baker. This is maybe a player that not a lot of people have figured out about yet, but Javon Baker is getting a ton of draft hype. This dude was like the only guy with 500 yards per something. He just some like the stat boy, the fantasy like advanced statistics guys. But what I care about is 3.21 yards per route run. Good contested catch ability for a guy who's 6'1", 208 pounds. He's got good hands as well, and 8th in deep yards, 574. And this dude just gets thrown the ball up. The only thing is the drop rate, 10.3% and 6 drops. That is kind of a lot. But could he be taking over guys like Coleman? I'm just trying to fool around here and figure some stuff out. For the New York Giants, I'm gonna take right tackle here because who would fit best as a right tackle? Maybe not Sue Matai. Again, these guys are not necessarily right tackles. Man, they're kind of screwed with I'll go with interior offensive line instead. I'm gonna go with guard because my roommate, shout out to my roommate Vin. He is obsessed with the Giants getting guard, and I'm gonna pick my best true guard, which is gonna be Christian Haynes. Good power, good size. Again, at UConn, UConn's not the best football program. They're doing very well in March Madness as I'm recording this, but 6'2", 213 pounds, big guy, as well as a good run blocker, good pass blocker, only allowed 12 pressures, right guard primarily, and that's kind of where they're weakest, really. For the Jaguars, I picked Kool-Aid McKinstry here. Now I'm more or less looking towards, again, I'm picking so many receivers, but a lot of teams really need him. I want to go with more or less a jump ball guy. I am going to go with Keon Coleman here. The issues with Keon Coleman is that he's not the best separator. And I would necessarily agree. 37% of his targets were contested, which is a high number. And his contested catch rate took a big fall. It was 33 this year, but it was like 67 in 2022 at Michigan State. But again, this guy doesn't drop the ball a ton. It's just more or less his catch radius is large. He's also very tall. He's 6'4", with a long wingspan. But it's kind of just the separation and route tree issues that a lot of people don't love about him. But I think he can come down with a lot of balls, especially within the red zone. For the Bengals, I took... Oh, I know who I'm taking here. I'm taking Ja'Tavion Sanders. This is going to be a fun one. Ja'Tavion Sanders, this dude has very secure hands, 0 drops here, as well as, I forget, 0 drops, 0% drop rate. Good receiver as well, 682 yards. Good after the catch, good red zone guy as well. I know he had 2 touchdowns, but that's more or less of opportunity. But like Ja'Tavion Sanders, I think that it's not as far, like the Brock Bowers isn't miles ahead of Ja'Tavion Sanders. It's a lot closer than people think. And for the Bengals, you missed out on Bowers in the first round. Go ahead and get who really is their tight end right now. That'd be better than Sanders. For the Eagles, do they have 2 second-round picks? No, I'm tripping. No, they do. I'm not tripping. It's right here. Who did I pick in the first round? I went ahead and got Nate Wiggins, so that means I'm going to go with linebacker. They really need linebacker. I'm going to go with Edgerrin Cooper here. I think that could be a fun pick. So I'm going to go with Edgerrin Cooper. Edgerrin Cooper is a really wild and fast player, good speed, but he had like 8 sacks, which is a lot for a linebacker. or a true inside or an inside linebacker. He's just kind of a play around, like a money guy, a jack if you would. I mean, he can rush off of the edge. He can blitz from the middle. Let's look at his snap count. I mean, he played D-line, slot, the box. He played pretty much everywhere, as well as look at where's the pass rush grade? Lower than I thought, but again, 90 grade. It's just, and he can also play a bit in man coverage as well. He can run with tight ends. It's just more or less, he's a little bit thinner, and he is a little bit like a wilder play style. He can miss some tackles here or there, and he can some of his angles are a bit like out. They're not as direct, but he plays wild and fast, and he is a fun player. For the Steelers, I picked Donnie Mitchell for their first round pick. Now I'm more or less, I think that a fun pick is going to be, I want to go really with now, again, it's not a right tackle draft here. Man, quarterback, I don't know why that's a need. They got 2 quarterbacks this offseason. I'm going to pick cornerback here. I think I'll jump back into the mix here, and I'm going to draft Renardo Green. Renardo Green is a big man coverage guy, big man guy. Let me show you the grade. 90 man coverage grade. I mean, I played man a ton at FSU. He also allowed only like 1 catch or 2 catches to Malik Neighbors when he played him in LSU week 1. Good size, but most of all, just good bump and run man coverage guy. And for the Steelers, that really fits what they kind of do and their scheme. The Rams, I picked Jerzon Newton, so I'm more or less going to go with tackle here. I'm going to go with Jordan Morgan. Jordan Morgan, very solid pass blocker, solid run blocker, bigger guy at 6'6", 320 pounds. Again, pass blocker, 87 grade, only allowed 14 pressures here. Played left tackle all throughout. Overall solid guy. I know he is getting some like early second round hype. I think that the late first round is or the late second round is where I would relatively take him. Eagles, I went ahead and got Edgerrin Cooper, and I went ahead and got Nate Wiggins. Let's look to the offense. And I'm going to go with a bit of a fun, interesting pick. You lose Kelsey. You lose Jason Kelsey in the offseason. I know that they do have Cam Jurgens, who's going to take over the mantle, but looking at how that offense is set up, I don't think they can lose that specific skill that Jason Kelsey has, especially looking at the technique that they run with their QB sneaks. They really need a guy who is really good at attacking defenders' leverage, and they need a guy who can just kind of get dirty and get on the ground, really. And Zach Frazier is literally essentially that player, because Zach Frazier is a 4-time wrestling champion in high school, and he basically does like wrestling takedowns. Like that is his technique for as a center, especially when he run defense. He essentially does wrestling takedowns. And he has great use of leverage as well, and good with using his hands at the point of attack. So I think that Zach Frazier, that's a pretty good fit for the Eagles. But then for the Cleveland Browns, have not seen this team before yet. I don't even know what they got in the offseason, but I'm more or less inclined to go with man, I don't necessarily know exactly what they need, but I think I'm going to go with the fun or interesting pick with Braden Fisk. I know that interior defensive line says their biggest need. I mean, maybe. I think they could use another edge rusher, but I'm going to go with Braden Fisk. What Braden Fisk had a really good combine, ran a 4.72 40 time for a 292 pound defensive lineman, which is good. And Braden Fisk also has a really good swim move that he likes to go to, but there are some question marks. An 8% pass rush win rate is a bit low, and he's a bit thinner at 292 pounds. It says that here, but good run stop rate. Overall, Braden Fisk, he's solid. He's solid. It's just more or less when he continues to go back to the swim move, because that's his best move, like offensive linemen can kind of figure it out and negate it a bit. With the Dolphins, I went ahead and picked Jackson Powers-Johnson with their first pick. I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy. I think it's very plausible that Worthy falls all the way down here. The Combine will get people really excited about Worthy just because of the 40 time. But if we look at the tape, I think that Worthy is kind of like a late second round guy. And I think the Dolphins are kind of a perfect fit. I mean, they're a track team essentially, and Worthy is a 4-2-1 guy, and but they ran him on a lot of screens. Also a great special teams guy. But the only thing I'm worried about Worthy is this dude cannot come down with a contested catch and fighting through contact. Again, he's 165 pounds. That came in at the combine, which is, a rough number. I'm going to go with an interesting pick for the Cowboys. I'm going to pick the first running back. I'm going to go with an interesting one because I do not think that Brooks is going to go within the second round. However, I'm going to pick Brooks here because I think that Brooks is my number one running back in this class. He has phenomenal vision, great contact balance. He's a one-cut back. If he hits a hole, he's gone. He has good patience. A little bit of plus ability with pass catching upside, but the ACL tear is the main thing that's going to scare front offices. ACL tears are two-year injuries, and I thought that Brooks probably should have went back to college for just 1 year and just rehabbed his knee, got some playing experience, and then probably would have been a good top 5 next year's running back class is phenomenal, but he probably would have still been a second round, third round pick max last year. But again, clear number 1 in this class. Good after contact as well, but the ACL tear is gonna affect people's perception. And then for the Buccaneers, I'm not going with another running back. I was going to, but nah, I'm gonna go with guard here. I'm gonna go with who's the best guard available? I think Christian Mahogany. I think this fits for Christian Mahogany. Going to go with the Buccaneers here. Again, guard I think is a need. As also good pass blocker. Only 7 pressures allowed, 0 sacks. Very solid built as well. He's 322 pounds, 6'3". Reminds me a good amount of like Osiris Torrance of last year. And then for the Green Bay Packers, did they have another second round pick? Yeah, they had. So I got Tyler Nubin and I got Troy Fatano. So now with them, I think I'm going to go with the last need on their board, which is going to be, who out of this group should I pick? I think I'm going to pick Chris Jenkins. I think Chris Jenkins can fit that 3-4 role. It's more or less he's going to be a 2-down guy for the Green Bay Packers here, as well as 12.6% run stop rate, 83 run defense grade. He was more of a run defender. Had 20 pressures, which is solid as well. But it's more or less the snap count was a bit limited because, again, he was a 2-down guy. So what a 2-down defensive lineman is they either play pass sets or they play first down and a run set. So Chris Jenkins would be in at first and second down, and then it would be like Kenneth Grant. Or he would rotate in. It was just more or less a defensive line rotation for Michigan, with Chris Jenkins being a first down guy because that's the most likely run play. And then for the Texans, they have a lot of picks because we had Peyton Wilson. Or no, they don't have a lot of picks, but obviously this is their second one. So you got Peyton Wilson. Now I'm gonna go with interior defensive line help. Maybe. I just don't think it fills out right here for interior defensive linemen. I think let's go back into the cornerbacks. I think I am going to go with cornerback, but I'm going to go with an underrated guy in Kyrie Jackson. I haven't heard a lot of talk about him outside of like the football. The football heads really do like him, but this guy was an Alabama transfer. He didn't really catch on at Alabama, but then when he transferred to Oregon, had a great year, 3 interceptions, 41.6 passer rating allowed, only 200 yards, 9 forced incompletions, a completion percentage allowed of 50%. All those numbers are really good. However, I do want to look in a bit more of Kyrie Jackson, but I think he came in at the combine at 6'2", 190-something pounds, but I want to look in more into Kyrie Jackson before I talk everybody's heads off about him. I'm not opposed for the Buffalo Bills going. I'm not opposed for them going wide receiver twice, but I more or less want to address one of the biggest needs that I was really looking at the beginning of the offseason, which is safety, because Poyer is I don't know if it was Poyer or Hyde that got cut, but both of them are essentially cut candidates. I don't know which one did, but one of them did. It was either Hyde or Poyer. But I'm going to go with another younger guy. I'm going to go with a newer guy with Javon Bullard. I really like Javon Bullard, man. All of his numbers are very, very good. 34 passing rating allowed. He plays the majority of the time at free safety, so he would fit that role that they play in a cover two shell type of system. Low missed tackle rate for a safety, 26% forced incompletion rate, 84 coverage grade, 2 interceptions to 0 touchdowns allowed, 7 forced incompletions. Really like Javon Bullard. I think he's a shoe-in for the late second round here. And then for the Lions, who did I pick in their first one? I went with Ennis Rakenstraw. I'm leaning more or less towards, again, interior offensive lineman. This could be either... I think I'm going to go with Mason McCormick, a guy that's a bit underrated, even for my books. But Mason McCormick had a great combine, great pro day as well. Only allowed 3 pressures this year, 90 run blocking grade, 85 pass blocking grade. All at left guard as well. He's a true left guard. It's more or less, he's going to have to move to right guard because the Lions already have their left guard. No, wait. Jonah Jackson, I think he played right guard. But the guard that they lost in free agency to the Rams. But Mason McCormick, he has the athleticism to move to both sides. Again, South Dakota State, they were crazy in the FBS this year, especially as a running team. Isaiah Davis went crazy with them. Mason McCormick, I think that's a pretty solid pick for the second round. And then for the Baltimore Ravens, I'm more or less going to go with edge here. I know I've been ignoring edge. It's a bit of a question mark for this edge class. Who do I really even want to go with here? I don't know. I think that the edge class is going to be really dry within the second round, unlike we've seen before. I want to go with I'm going to go with Braylon Trice. I am going to go with Trice. So Braylon Trice led the FBS in pressures this year with 80, but purely because he had 900 plus snaps. Played all in 15 games for Washington this year. Trice is overall a solid pass rush. He's got some good pass rush moves. He moves pretty fluid. He's got a long wingspan. He can do a good amount of things. 17.6 pass rush win rate. He had 7.5 sacks. Or 7 sacks this year, as well as the 80 pressures that led the FBS. He's solid. I think he's a good pick for the late second round. And then for the 49ers, what are there? I mean, I would be inclined to take receiver. I think that's what actually I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna take wide receiver here. Let's go with the fun, explosive guy with Tez Walker or Devontae Walker. So Walker got a lot of hype in the beginning of the draft season because people were really fond over his when he came back, because he had some NCAA transfer issues or blah blah blah. So he only had 699 yards in 8 games, 7 touchdowns. But he was a big explosive guy for UNC, and he also good contested catch rate, good hands. But the thing that I'm a bit worried about is you could see the grade versus man coverage. It's more or less like his releases are weird, and he doesn't have the best releases off the line, and also not the best playing through contact. Also really likes to try to grab balls with one hand instead of trying to basket it. So I do think that's why he'll fall to the second round, but I think the 49ers can steal him here. And then for the Kansas City Chiefs, I am going to go with... who could I go with? Man, who do they have at left tackle? They have Donovan Smith. They gotta choose. I'm gonna choose left tackle here. Gonna go with Patrick Paul. I think Patrick Paul is a bit of an underrated guy. Very good pass blocker. Had the highest pass blocking grade according to PFF. I don't know why they're not showing the second round here, but Patrick Paul is my pick for the Chiefs. But that's going to do it for this 2-round mock draft. Let me know some players your team would like. Let me know what you thought about this mock draft. And I think then the next mock draft I'm going to do is I'm just going to fly through a 3-round mock draft and just really explore some players that some teams could go to. But yeah, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.